another trinity of energy centers within the human design body graph. And so this is my personal way of seeing things, not a direct teaching from Ra Uru Hu. It's my simple way of seeing things that make sense. And so this next trinity is what I call the centers of self, the Trinity of Self. And it begins with the sacral center, the force of generated reality below. Above, we have the throat center. We have manifest reality in the form of communication and transformation. And in between what is above and below, we have the G center, the center of self itself. And so these three centers happen to make up a force known as the penta. And they play a huge role in our lives, whether we know it or not. And so this sacral center, this energy below the G, is eternally rising up to greater and greater heights. You see, the nature of the sacral center is this drive to rise up to the next stage, to the next step, to the next step. Doesn't matter where you are, whenever you get to that step, you're looking forward to rising up to the next step, and to the next step, and to the next step. And this is the nature of generated reality. You see, this is that fundamental aspect of what we are in our lower energies. You know, this physical world, this materia in which we exist, where things are solid and you can't push through the wall. It's simply a generated force field from the sacral center. Resting above the very middle of the human design body graph, above the G center, is the center of manifestation, the center of communication. This is called the throat center. Now, this is distinctly different from the generative process of the sacral, in that this is existential manifestation in the now that is radically transforming. There's no need to rise up for this greater height. This is the great height that is radically transforming to deliver the expression of emotions, of willpower, of unique individual direction in life, of immune system intelligence, and even conceptual ideas in the mind. This is the most complicated energy center out of all 9, for it has 12 gates, the most of any. It has a big responsibility, communicating so much. And so the third energy center within this trinity of centers, what is in between, what is in the middle, what the above and the below are centered around. This is manifest reality above, generated reality below, and the G in the middle. This is the true self, and this is a self with a capital S. Doesn't necessarily connect to the individual, although it also does. You see, this is one of the most mystical and magical and mysterious energy centers, because the magnetic monopole resides in gate 2 in this G center, and this G center gives us our sense of identity, and it moves us along our geometry through space-time in life. And that's quite mysterious. More on the G center in the very middle of the entire body graph, in the center of the centers of self. The center of self. Very recursive and redundant sentence there, to elucidate the nature of this center and how it outfolds to make the entire wheel around which the zodiac is placed. And so there are gates in the G center, and if you look around the wheel, you'll notice that every 8 gates, there is one gate of the G center that opens up those 8 gates. And if you look at the hexagram, the bottom 3 chops of that are all the same. So it's as if the center of self opens up and unfolds to make the entire wheel of difference in the entire human differentiation program. And so within that G center, there is something called the magnetic monopole in the second gate. And this is actually what holds together our entire hologram and illusion of separation. The idea that you and I are distinct and different beings and we can recognize each other and we're not the same, that we're separate from each other. This is something very fascinating because when we look outward just a bit to the rest of these self-centers, as I call them, the throat center above and the sacral center below, these three centers also make up what is known as the penta. And now the penta does not have a magnetic monopole. It does not have an illusion of separateness. And yet it is a living being that lives off us, and it wants us to respect our elders. Isn't that fascinating?